gentlemen, it's the Big Jiujitsu show, a member of the Pod Bros Podcast Network. Don't forget to go to podbros.com. Find another podcast that you like listening to, and don't forget to listen to us. And also check out our sponsors, Tape Armor and Trap and Roll Soap Company. If you like your fingers kept safe and you like not being a dirty bastard, just go buy some tape and buy some soap, and you'll be a happy guy. And don't forget to go to bigjujitsu.com. Buy some t-shirts, buy some patches, and find some of our older episodes. I'm Rob, and I am here today with another podcaster, actually, who's on the Pod Bros Podcast Network with us, Mr. Damon Tidwell. Did I say that name, the last name right? I probably should have asked you before we even started.
Oh, no, you nailed it.
Oh, fuck yeah. There we go. All right, good. So,
it's better than a lot of what I get is I've gotten Damon Tidwell before, which is very baffling. Most people just call me Damien, and people have told me that Damon is short for Damien, which is not the case because I know what my name is, and it's not short for Damien.
I was like, hey, thanks for telling me about my name that, I've had my whole fucking life.
Yeah, 27 years.
It's like I had no idea that's how I pronounce my own name that I've had since birth, yeah. So whatever.
Thanks for the information.
So, Damon, how about can you tell our listeners pretty much like about your podcasts, and then we'll just go from there. We'll see wherever this crazy show takes us.
Absolutely. So the one that I do the most consistently is the Accidental Wrestling Fan, which is a wrestling podcast. And I'm actually going to get the house tidied up a little bit because I'm having people over for SummerSlam the night after we record this. I do that. I do The Worst Millennials, which is just my friends doing a bootleg version of the Joe Rogan Experience. We just talk about random stuff and kind of bullshit. We do talk about some societal issues, but most times we end up talking about drugs, porn, and drinking. Oh, and and then the third one I do is Gogopoda, which is a MMA podcast, which is one of my favorite ones to do, but it's hard because a lot of people around here aren't as knowledgeable as I would like them to be, so I can really get good topics. So I don't do it as much as the other two, but I do enjoy doing it.
It's always fun to get out there and talk to, like, I guess maybe like-minded people. Maybe not, like, really the best phrase to use, but people who share an interest in MMA. Because it used to be really easy to follow because it was a card, every month, every 2 months or something?
Yeah, I was looking on Wikipedia yesterday, and it was the UFC events per year. And it starts in 1993, there was one. I think 94, there was 3. And then you go to 2014, there's 41. Then last year there was 46, and I think this year there's been 28, and we still have 4 more months to go out of the year.
That's ridiculous, man. I know that they have such a stable of fighters now that you have to have this many shows to get them all in there, but...
Yeah, it's hard because when it was a more manageable schedule for UFC, it allowed me to watch a lot of other promotions. So yeah, I got to watch a lot of Dream, I got to watch a lot of Strikeforce, but now almost all of those fighters are all in the UFC, so that's really your only options. And it's so hard to watch it. There's a lot of times where there's a fight night on a Saturday night, and like the Yair Rodriguez and Alex Caceres card.
Yeah.
I still haven't even watched it yet. It's just been chilling on my DVR because I have so much other things to do than sit there and watch every single UFC. Even though I love the shit, I can't keep up anymore.
It is actually pretty difficult because for the same reason, like out here in Germany, it's even more difficult. I'm not saying I'm having a harder time or whatever, but they start at 4 a.m. out here.
Oh,
so
God.
I'm not, like, look, it's my weekend, I'm sleeping in. I'm not getting up at 4 a.m. to watch, I don't know, like Conor McGregor run away from Nate Diaz for freaking, 3 rounds, but... that's...
You're going to hate the Bisping and Henderson card. Bisping versus Henderson 2 starts at 3 a.m. in England.
Oh, Jesus. That's like 4 a.m. for us, man.
Yeah.
And I really want to see it, too. So, I mean, it sucks. It sucks a lot.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully you don't wake up super early to watch Dan Henderson get sparked out by Michael Bisping, of all people.
I probably will end up just waking up and pulling up Facebook at that point. And if it's like something I want to see, then I'll find the fight. But like
probably wake up to see Bisping have a crying Jordan photoshopped on his face, gets knocked out again by Henderson.
One of my favorite photoshops of all time is when somebody has the from the back picture of Dan Henderson knocking out Bisping, and Bisping's like in an old colonial British Army uniform with like his powdered wig and his hat, his tri-cornered hat, just getting knocked off his head while he's getting.
That was my Facebook profile picture when I was like 20 years old or whenever. What was that, 2009 that happened? Yeah, so I was
Yeah.
like 20. I was in college, and that was my Facebook profile picture. It was fantastic.
Good shit, man. Well, I'm glad that you enjoy Michael, or not Michael, but I'm sorry, Dan Henderson. Please don't find me. No, I'm sorry. I'm glad that you like Dan Henderson as well. But
Oh, Dan Henderson's my dude.
I will say, like, the time difference though, when Ronda Rousey got knocked out and I woke up and pulled my phone out, it was like Christmas. It was. I was like, what happened? No way. And somebody's like, it was embarrassing. So I had to find the fight, and I was blown away.
If you go on the Gogopoda Facebook, there is a video that I made set to that song from the OC, the "Ooh What You Say" song.
Oh, really?
When she gets head kicked, it goes into slow motion when she's falling.
Oh
It,
no.
it got like 3,500 views like the day after that, and there's a lot of people thought it was funny, and then there's some people that got really pissed off, like "fuck Damon Tidwell." Like, I bet you wouldn't say that to Ronda Rousey's face or make fun of her and all that stuff. I'm like, listen, I think she's a great fighter. I thought it was funny. Like, I thought it was an amusing thing to do. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. It was more of how watching a hype train get derailed or an apple cart tip over, you're like, oh shit, like I can't believe that just happened.
No, I mean, I agree with you 100% on that. It was very awesome to see, because there was a lot of, her striking is amazing, and a lot of people who've done striking or seen a lot of striking go, no, not really. Not really. There's a lot of holes in the game there, and then Holly Holm just found all of them.
Ronda pretty much offered herself up on a silver platter to Holly, because Ronda is very heavy-handed and very strong, but she moves in a very linear fashion, and Holly likes to cut a lot of angles, and Ronda basically was just running right into every punch.
Yeah. Oh, that's and complete. Oh, was it the one she threw where she like kind of fell against the cage after freaking Holly Holm, ducked under
the punch.
Oh, it was beautiful.
Yeah,
Ooh,
man.
I was like, she is mad and pissed, and this is gonna end bad.
That was the moment I'm like, this fight is over. She had this look of bewilderment, like, yeah, this is done. Which is funny because Sean and I, on an episode leading up to that fight, we said that Holly would do really well, but we thought that Ronda would probably get a hold of her finally in like the third round or so, and probably end up getting the submission. But we kept talking about how Holly is so much better in the stand-up, and then she ended up winning. And someone who listened to that episode told us, like, I can't believe you guys had so much respect for Holly Holm's stand-up ability and talked about how she could really do some damage to Ronda and just didn't pick her. Just didn't have the balls to pick her.
Oh,
I regret that all the time. I should have just straight up just picked her. I should have put my life savings on Holly Holm.
Yeah, you had done well. Fuck, man. She came in as like a major underdog, as everybody else that Ronda's fought for a while.
I think that was one of the craziest weekends in the history of like gambling in Vegas. Vegas went down hard because there's a couple college football upsets, and that happened too because I think Holly was the biggest underdog in UFC history, inexplicably, despite the fact that she's like a 27,000 time boxing champion.
Exactly, yeah. That's what kills me. It's like, oh, it's different because, you can do takedowns and stuff. Like, well, you also have to get in and try not to get punched in the face. That kind of, is part of the mixed martial arts experience. You can't just grapple somebody. You gotta be able to do everything, and that kind of fucked her in the end, I think.
Yeah, although Holly did, we found out that she does struggle with grappling a little bit because she ended up losing the title to Misha the very next fight.
Yeah, and then Misha lost the title the very next fight,
to Amanda Nunes, because Amanda Nunes did all the things that Misha struggles with, which is getting overwhelmed by people who hit hard.
Yeah, and then I have a feeling Nunes is going to lose the belt in the next fight, and I think we're going to have this real bad. Sometimes I hate agreeing with Brendan Shaw, but we're going to have like this revolving.
Oh God!
No, we're going to have this like revolving doorway of champions in the women's division. I mean, I think like we don't have anybody solid right now except for maybe Daniel Cormier and Mighty Mouse. That's it.
Mighty Mouse will probably never lose the title. They'll probably have to pry the title from his cold dead hands in like 2057.
Yeah, bro. He's a little dude and he's killer. I love it.
Yeah, he's so good. I mean, I don't really see much else for him to do after he beats whoever wins the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, honestly, he should just go back up and try to go for the 135 title.
Yeah, that would be interesting to watch. But so let's get something a little more recent. Did you watch the fights last night?
Oh yeah, I watched the fights, had a couple pints of beer while I did so. It
Delicious.
was a fantastic card. There's a lot of finishes.
I heard this was a way better card. I'm still going through all the fights to watch, but
Mm.
so far I'm very happy. It was way better than UFC 200, and I've heard a lot of people say that too. That they were happier with this card than they were with UFC 200.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit more enjoyable as far as action goes than UFC 200. Although I do say that UFC 200's Fight Pass prelims were fantastic, and I thought they were going to really set the table. And I thought Cain Velasquez, he did an awesome job kicking off the main card, stopping Travis Brown. So I thought, man, this is going to be a crazy night, and we did not we did not get what we were looking for with UFC 200, but 202 more than made up for it.
Yeah, and then but the main event, good fight, but I've heard a lot of contention as usual when Conor McGregor fight. Like, could you pick two people, the two fighters with such a loyal fan base for either person, like ridiculously loyal, like fan base for either person?
Yeah, I was pulling for Nate. I am fans of both guys. I think both guys are very good fighters. I like Nate a little bit more than Connor. I think I like Nate because it was almost like a hardcore MMA fans versus the casual MMA fans because all the casual fans were going for Connor,
Yeah,
and then all the hardcore fans seemed to be going for Nate. And at the bar last night, you got a lot of people talking about how Connor's doing so great, like he's gonna knock Nate out, and people just talking shit and yelling. Then Nate started turning it up in the second and third round, and they started getting more and more quiet.
yeah. I love that. I love that. So somebody, was saying this kind of same thing, like, oh yeah, well Connor's such a great, he's probably the best fighter we've ever had. I'm like, you mean when he got choked out, or like
Yeah,
when he beat a Chad Mendez with 10 days of training? Not even like he was like on vacation, or the Dennis Seaver fight where Dennis Seaver broke into the top 10 right before the fight and then magically disappeared from the top 10 right after.
yeah, he lost to Kawajiri after that, I think, and then he was supposed to fight BJ Penn, but he got hurt, which probably would look like a snuff film. I don't see any way that Dennis Seaver could ever beat BJ Penn
Yeah.
unless he hits the greatest spinning kick of his life.
Yeah, that's true. I was just thinking more for the fact, like, how did Dennis Seaver jump up so high in the rankings right before he fights Connor? You know what I mean? Like,
I'm trying to remember. I have to look it up because I know Dennis Seaver was on a bit of a roll when he moved to 145, but I'll have to look really quickly.
yeah, I felt it was kind of sketchy, but um,
Let's see here. Good old Dennis Seaver. He looks like a Bond villain. My
he
buddy
does,
Dawson
does
said that. Yeah, he looks definitely much like a James Bond villain. Okay, yeah, that was really confusing how he was in the top 10 because his record over the last couple years has not been very good.
no.
He beat Diego Nunes, who hasn't been in UFC in 4 years. He beat Nam Van, who's also been released, and he got knocked out by Cub Swanson. He beat Manny Gambarian, then got suspended. Then he beat Charlie Rosa, who was not in the top 10. I don't even think he's in the top 15. I don't even think he's in the UFC anymore. And then he got knocked out by Connor. So, yeah, that makes no sense how he was in the top 10.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that was more of like a, well, you see, Connor's beating a top 10 fighter, so it makes sense to kind of give him a title shot next. And everyone's like, what? It's just because this guy is pulling the Ali, uh, Chael Sonnen angle, trying to just talk trash the whole time. And
Oh, yeah, that was it. And the everyone knows the rankings don't mean shit in the UFC. My theory is that it's basically for more casual viewers when you're at the bar watching TV and you see like Duke versus Arizona in basketball and they have numbers
yeah,
next to their names. You're like, oh, this is an important fight. So you throw numbers next to names and like, oh, this seems important, as opposed to just hyping up the fighters and get anyone who's should be a top 10 fighter, just hyping them up and giving them the push that they deserve, as because they're one of the 10 best people at their job at their weight in the world.
yeah, it does help out for, like you said, the casual fan. So they're
Yeah.
sitting at the bar, they know better than anybody else in there about how to fight because, they're undefeated in street fights. And, they're like, oh yeah, top 2, top 3 guy sounds good. This is gonna be a good fight. If I was him, I wouldn't tap.
Yeah,
Just drawing
I
drawing
remember
some bad
UFC.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, go ahead. What were you saying?
I'm just saying, just drawing some bad memories from watching UFC in bars and shit like that.
Oh God, I was sitting at the bar after UFC 196 after Holly and Connor both lost by rear naked choke. And I remember people saying Holly Holm was a G because she didn't tap out, but Connor was a pussy because he tapped out. I'm thinking to myself, I don't know if you've ever been choked before, but you were absolutely thinking, yep, I should tap because I can't breathe anymore because I feel like I'm going to die. And there's absolutely no shame in tapping out. And I wish I could get some of these barstool pundits, as I call them,
Oh,
to
that's
just go and
nice.
roll. Even with just a decent white belt and see what happens. You're not going to like it.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like the amount of people. I see it no different than like people talking about like, well, if I was a quarterback, I would have made a different call. Like, if you were the quarterback, you wouldn't be here, on $1 PBR night talking shit to people who like are actually out there making the decisions. So
Yeah,
it's
I mean, I always tell people, I ask them, who do you think's going to win this fight? But I always give them the caveat, like, you have to tell me why. Like, give me a reason why you think this guy's going to win, other than like, oh yeah, I like Connor, he's real good. He's got a lot of knockouts. Like, do you think he's faster than the other guy? Do you think he has more power? Give me some sort of details other than I like that guy because he has a bunch of bad tattoos like me.
like I'm gonna call out my sister on this. She actually picked George St. Pierre to win. Had no idea who he was. I was like, why do you think he's gonna win? He's like, oh, because he has this really cool tattoo and I like it. I was like,
I thought she was gonna say because he's hot.
no, I have heard that though too. He's like, I like his
Yeah.
tattoo. I'm like, okay, fair enough. You like his tattoo. Oh, he won. Big surprise there. But I remember his other instance of kind of the same thing. Like, why do you want Andrei Arlovsky to win? He's like, well, he's good looking. Not from my sisters, from somebody else. But
Oh, yeah, he's gigantic and he looks cool.
yeah, he looks like he should have been in 300 maybe. But
He had to settle for a really bad Universal Soldier movie though.
I did see that was fucking awful. Oh
Oh
my
man,
god.
shout out to Mike Pyle though. Mike Pyle killed it in that movie.
It was really crazy because I knew they had made another Universal Soldier, right?
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, like, they had the second one with Michael J. White, which, I love action movies, so I was really excited about that. And then they waited a while, and then there was a third one. And I think I was like browsing through Netflix or something. I was like, oh, this must be a new Universal Soldier movie that, just came out on Netflix or whatever. Turned it on, it was not. Like, I had to look it up 30 minutes in. I'm like, this quality sucks. Like, what the fuck
Okay,
is this?
I am a connoisseur of bad movies, especially bad action movies.
Yeah.
And growing up, I always really liked Universal Soldier. And I remember being super hyped for Universal Soldier: The Return because I had Goldberg in it. I love Goldberg.
Yeah, he was in
Big
that.
wrestling fan. And it had that Megadeth song that was in the old UFC game on Dreamcast, Crush 'em. I'm like, this is gonna be so sweet, and it was so bad, and I was so disappointed. And then one morning, I woke up real early on a Sunday, and I was watching the Sci-Fi Channel because I always just watch bad movies on Sci-Fi
Oh,
Channel. That's how
yes.
I saw like Carnosaur 1 and 2, which are so bad. But there were two other sequels to Universal Soldier. They were direct to Showtime. It was Universal Soldier 2 and then Universal Soldier like Back in Business or something like that.
Yeah.
Doesn't have Van Damme in it, doesn't have Lundgren in it. Burt Reynolds is inexplicably in these movies.
What?
And yeah,
Really?
look
Holy
them up. They are very
I'm gonna
bad.
pull that up
And they
right now.
should have
Keep going.
they pretend that those movies don't exist. And then these new movies pretend that the Goldberg Universal Soldier never happened. It just goes from one to the one with Arlovsky. And then they made another one after that where Van Damme's a terrorist somehow.
Yeah, I did see that. I think like the trailer for that. I'm looking it up now. Holy shit! Yeah, you weren't kidding. There's Universal Soldier 2. Oh wow, there is Burt Reynolds in that one. Hold on, I'm going through each one. Universal Soldier 2, Brothers in Arms. Who was in this? Matt Battaglia, Burt Reynolds was also in this. Gary Busey was in this. Gary Busey, for those of you who don't know, the man who thinks he is every character he's ever played. And then, okay, so that's Universal Soldier 2. And then there's Universal Soldier The Return, the one we were talking about with Goldberg and Van Damme, Michael J. White. Who else? All right, and then now it's like split off again. Universal Soldier Day of Reckoning, which has Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren, Scott Adkins, Andrei Arlovsky. Actually, I think that might be where I got confused, because was it Regeneration? Was that it? With Andrei Arlovsky in it? No, like, yeah, he was in this one too. What the fuck? Yeah, Mike Pyle was in that.
Maybe yeah. And then the end of the movie, it shows, and spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen it, Mike Pyle ends up saving these kids, but he basically dies in the process. Arlovsky ends up killing him. It's actually a pretty good fight scene. It's hilarious, though, because Mike Pyle is a welterweight and Andrei Arlovsky is this gigantic heavyweight. And them fighting each other is just ridiculous to me. But it was a good fight scene. He ends up getting killed. And the end of the movie, they show clones of Mike Pyle, because they're left the door open for another sequel, and they'd have Mike Pyle as one of the Universal Soldiers, and they just pretend that didn't happen in the movie afterwards.
There was a movie, I'm trying to, because that reminds me, like the Mike Pyle Andrei Arlovsky fight. There was a movie, I'm trying to remember. My friend Tim made me watch it. He said, "Oh, you'd be interested in this. It's got a whole bunch of like MMA fighters in it," and I'm trying to remember who it was. I do know that Roddy Piper was one of the actors in it, and he played a cop. Big surprise. And Jesus, what was it? Because it was like him and one of the Gracies. I think Alistair Overeem was in it. Let's see, gotta pull it up, because it's like, it was one of those movies where I'm like, this is fucking awful, but it's awesome at the same time.
It's like that movie with George St. Pierre is in it, and Michael Bisping's a villain, and he kills Michael Bisping kills Bobby Lashley somehow. Like he kills him with an armbar or something.
He kills him with an armbar? It's amazing.
Yeah, I'll have to look it up. I might be merging all the movies together, because all these MMA guys do these bad action movies for a paycheck, and so they can get that SAG insurance money.
Yeah, no kidding. Let's see. I'll pull it up. Three Wise Guys, not it. Shut Up and Shoot. Yoakum the Bartender. Actually, this might be it. Nope. Although this movie does have Tom Sizemore, Gary Busey, Daniel Baldwin, and Joe Estevez in it. If those of you who watch Mystery Science Theater kind of familiar with Joe Estevez's role in Werewolf. Oh, so are you? Oh, is this it? Yes. Oh my God. All right. It's called Honor. Let's just get real simple with the fucking, the title. In a world where street gangs collide with the law, neighborhood friends Raymond and Gabriel must decide which side of the battle to join. This will be the ultimate fight, the one for power, family, and honor. It's rated 4.8. Now, like, the thing is, I don't remember any of the fucking plot, like, at all. So let's run down some of the people. You got Roddy Piper. Oh, it was not Alistair Overeem. It was Remy Bojanski.
Oh, God.
Yep. Don Fry, Henner Gracie, Horion Gracie. Who else do I see? That's actually really it. That was in there that I recognized. But I think it was Henner got Remy Bojanski in a triangle choke, and just like half-ass rolled him onto his back and just started elbowing him in the face, and somehow Remy Bojanski magically got out of that. But then, like, Remy Bojanski, I think, like, kneed him right in the face, and he didn't go down. So, I remember Remy Bojanski from old K1 stuff, and, I was like, how is he still standing? Of course, I had to be the asshole. I was like, well, in real life, Remy Bojanski would knock him out.
Yeah, I have a problem now watching certain things in action movies, especially now that we're on this topic. Anytime there's any sort of like MMA technique in an action movie, I cringe so hard. I remember really being hyped up for Warrior with Tom Hardy.
Yeah.
Um, I remember really liking that when I first saw it, and then I rewatched it and like, ooh, I don't like this anymore. Like
This.
Joel Egerton hits a head kick, but he spins through the head kick. You know how you would spin if you miss a head kick? Like a
Yeah.
lot of fighters do that. I go, you don't do that if you actually connect with the kick. I was furious. Or he did the most insane heel hook on Kurt Angle, who was basically the middleweight Fedor in that movie,
Yeah.
Koba.
Yeah.
He
And
did this behind the back heel hook that I don't think I've ever seen anybody do besides on a demo video. Like, oh, here's a cool heel hook. No one's gonna see it coming. Like, yeah, good luck pulling that off.
yeah, I thought it was a knee bar actually, but
Was it an e? Oh yeah, it was an e bar. It's behind the back. Yeah, I,
get that
I
extra like torque on it or whatever.
yeah.
Like, all right,
I
man.
mean, yeah. I mean, you go, Joel Egerton. I mean, that's real. That's real tight. This guy, he was tying people up like pretzels in that movie, and he was a school teacher.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell is that guy rolling with on his days off or after class?
Yeah, no
Because that guy was a
shit.
monster on the ground.
It well, because I watched it again recently because I have no life. I had like a week of leave. Like I just took a
Hmm.
week off. I'm like, come on, man. I'm gonna watch some movies. Watch this. Try to get like my Rocky juices going because I'm training for this fight coming up. And freaking, I was just like, that's weird. Like, yeah, school teacher. He used to be in the UFC. Well, he's doesn't look like he's training. I think he even went somewhere and was like, hey, I need to start training again. And the dude was like, "Yeah, of course. We'll get you ready and whatnot." What was he doing before that? Like you said, he was just like fucking people up. And then
Yeah, then
this,
they said he sucked. They said he was a terrible fighter. He was barely over 500 or something.
yeah, and that's what made it even worse. Like, what the hell is he doing here? Like, I don't know. The whole thing kind of rubbed me wrong, but it was still kind of like a weird, cool movie in a way. So,
Yeah. Tom Hardy's character, his brother, was supposed to be like this all-star wrestler that ended up joining the military, but
yeah,
used zero wrestling moves throughout the fight. He was doing all these Muay Thai moves, just keep kicking the shit out of people.
yeah,
It was,
he fucked him up
uh,
real good that way. But like, I think something that was funny to me in the whole thing was the scene where was it the older brother gets they're out running hills. That's when the dude's leg breaks. Was he just like, what the fuck happened? What type of runner?
what was he doing where he hurt his leg and then they had to let the brother fill in? What the hell was he doing?
Yeah, I want to know what sort of fucked up runs like that. He's like, all right, hey guys, we're gonna run up this hill, and when you get to the top, I'm going to drop kick you right in your thigh.
Dean Malenko style.
Yeah, absolutely. You're just gonna fuck him up. Dean Malenko, was it the man of 1,000 holds or something? Was
That's
that?
right. The Texas Cloverleaf was his name.
Yeah, dude, I still remember my WCW stuff, man. Fucking, I do miss pro wrestling a lot, like watching pro wrestling. So,
Dude, I was watching a match yesterday because John and I were talking about Dean Malenko on the wrestling podcast, and we were trying to figure out what the hell the Malenko leg lock was. And I'm watching a match where it's him versus Mr. JL or Jerry Lynn, if you're a hardcore wrestling fan. And Dean Malenko straight up hits a calf crusher on him. That's the Malenko leg lock. I lost my
really,
shit.
I need
Dean
to check that
Malenko's
out.
next level ground game, man.
A lot of those guys, legit grapplers, fighters, just tough guys all around. We had Travis Conley on our show who did professional wrestling as well, and like he's a jiu-jitsu black belt. He's just a fucking monster. And he was talking about like it's not easy, and the guys get pissed when you say it's fake
Mm.
because it's not fake. It's like it's a work or something. I forgot what the terminology was, but a lot of those guys came up like you had to learn the moves, and doing the moves really on people fuck them up real good.
Yeah, I know if you go even older than that, like far before our time, you got a lot of guys who were called hookers back in the day
Yeah,
because they used to call submission moves hooks, and then they end up being coining the term shooter. And a lot of the guys had to be, real shooter, brother, just legit try to shoot on you to take the title and say like, oh yeah, we beat this promotion's champion, like our guy's the world champion now, so
yeah.
you legit had to know how to fight. Especially people would come up to you in the bar and tell you, "Oh, it's fake," so you had to rough them up a little bit to know that you were legit.
Yeah, wasn't it Hulk Hogan that one of the reporters like, oh, blah, 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 something about being fake? He goes, does this feel fake? And he punches him in the face or something like that.
That was Dr. D, Dave Schultz, when the reporter said, "Is this fake?" and he slaps the shit out of that guy. Like,
Man.
I think it ruptured that guy's eardrum. He really messed that guy up.
Well, talk shit, get hit. That's right. No, because also, like in Japan, it's a big thing. So, like, well, I know you're way more knowledgeable about professional wrestling than I am. But I go like, was it the great Antonio Inogaki?
Antonio Inoki, who
Inoki,
is
thank you. Oh, I
yeah.
fucked that up real bad. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. Inoki, who was a guy who was all about making pro wrestling real. Or not real, but making it look as real as it can. He wanted his wrestlers to be real fighters, which almost killed New Japan, which is the biggest promotion in Japan right now. Kind of had a resurgence recently. He was on this weird kick of making sure like everyone knew that his guys were real fighters. So he would end up sending some of his fighters in the MMA, like Yuji Nagata, who was in WCW. You might have remembered him from WCW Revenge.
Absolutely.
He had to fight Crow Cop and Fedor, and I felt so bad for him because he's a great wrestler. He seems like a good dude, and he got absolutely mollywopped. It was not a good time, but Inoki, if you guys don't know the story, he shot on a guy called the Great Antonio.
Yes.
And
I'll let you. This is one of my favorite videos of all time. Go ahead.
oh my God, it makes me uncomfortable to watch because I feel like the Great Antonio might be cognitively impaired the way he's moving and acting, and he's not selling Inoki's moves. Inoki starts getting hot because he's not selling it and he's making him look bad. So Inoki just starts beating him up for real, kicking him in the head, punching him in the head. He busts this guy up, makes him bleed. It's insane. It's insane. It's one of the craziest instances in wrestling when someone starts fighting someone for real. It's one of the most prevalent instances of a shoot.
Yeah, and like a lot of guys too. Like I think I don't remember if Sakuraba did any professional wrestling.
Yeah, he did. He
Oh,
did. He started off as a pro wrestler. He did UWFI or something like that.
Okay.
I know he got in the game with Minoru Suzuki, who's one of the forefathers of modern MMA as we know it.
Yeah, and then because I know like Manoa, Ikehisa Manoa, also one of my favorites of all time, man. Dude's fucking
the drop
nuts.
kick, dude. Have you ever seen the hype video of him versus Phil Baroni going into their second fight?
I don't think I
It's
have.
oh my God, I'll have to send you the link to it.
Please
It
do, yeah.
it is some of the greatest shit talking I've ever seen a human being utilize. Phil Baroni cuts basically the greatest pro wrestling promo of all time. He's just like, what the fuck is Manoa gonna do to me? What? Is he gonna stall again? Like he just starts talking cash shit on this guy, and it's phenomenal. You're gonna love it.
I'll definitely check that out after the episode. So we're actually about to close it out. Before we finish our episode, is there plug your podcast? Tell us where we can find you. Tell us where we can follow you. Like, give us a rundown, man.
All right, cool. Get ready because I'm gonna throw a lot at everybody. So you can find all the podcasts on podbros.com, and you can find them on iTunes, of course. I do, like I said, the Accidental Wrestling Fan, Gogopoda, and you can spell it Gogopa, or I'm sorry, Gogopoda. So it's a play on Gogoplata. And Worst Millennials, you can also find that as well. Twitter handles at Worst Millennials on Twitter, but it doesn't have the O in it. It's WRST Millennials. You can find Gogopoda MMA on Twitter, and then of course TA Wrestling Fan is the Accidental Wrestling Fans Twitter page. And if you ever actually want to talk to me as myself, I'm Downriver Top Team on Twitter.
Downriver, I like it, man. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I really do appreciate you coming on the show today. I know, like you guys give us a lot of support, so we want you guys on the show. We talk about some good. Well, we didn't talk about jiu-jitsu today, so fuck it. But we talked about professional wrestling, which is awesome.
Yeah.
We talked about action movies, which is just as good to me.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to talk about jiu-jitsu some other time and how my game is basically to do as little as I possibly can. Straight up, I'm a heavier guy, so I don't want to work hard. I just make everyone do the work for me. Like I don't do takedowns. My basically my takedown offense is if you try to throw me, I just sandbag you and fall on top of you and just go for an arm triangle. I go for key locks and arm triangles. My key locks are terrible. I just go after an arm and just try to wrench it.
Yeah.
And then my arm triangle, I basically just squeeze your neck like you owe me money.
Isn't that the way you do it anyways? That's what you're supposed to do, it, right? You're supposed to try to pop
Yeah.
his head off.
It's
Easy
true.
mode.
Yeah, no. The last time I arm triangle someone, I was getting really nervous because he wasn't tapping, and I'm like, "Am I doing this right?" But then he started gurgling. I'm like, "Please don't pass out. Please don't pass out. Please just tap out." He finally tapped. I'm like, "Man, don't do that to me because you're making me nervous." I I don't ever want to hurt anyone's shoulder either with a joint lock. That's why I prefer the chokes because the last thing I want is to try and go for a Kimura on someone and then their shoulder explodes.
Yeah, that's one of the hardest joints to ever get back. Even if you do like your Superman repairs or whatever the fuck it is, you still it's still fucked up for good.
Oh yeah, dude. I used to throw shot and disc in high school, and my right shoulder will pop sometimes when I rotate it.
Ugh.
So anytime anyone ever tries to get me an Americana Kimura, I'll just tap right away before they even get a chance to lock it up. I like my shoulder, and I'm right-handed, so.
Yeah, you need it. You're gonna need your shoulder. Awesome. Well, dude, I really do appreciate you coming on the show. And ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Big Jiu-Jitsu podcast. Don't forget to check out our sponsors, Tape Armor, as well as Trap and Roll Soap Company. And we're a member of the Pod Bros Podcast Network, podbros.com. Find yourself another one of these podcasts, mainly Damon's, and we're going to listen to all his stuff. I downloaded all the episodes of Gogopoda. I had no idea you were on the other ones, because then I would have had all of them, and I spent my entire plane ride back catching up. So.
Oh yeah. Well, make sure you're not around people that you care about when you listen to Worst Millennials. You're gonna have a different perception of me after those shows.
Oh, whatever, man. Trust me, I'm so open-minded about shit. As long as you're not I like murdering people and then smuggling illicit drugs. Other than that, I don't care. I'm good with whatever people do.
No, but we've talked about taking illicit drugs though, but that's a different story for a different podcast.
Absolutely. And yeah, don't forget to go to bigjujitsu.com, and we will be doing our draw for our Show You Roll Gi here very soon. It'll be this week. I'm Rob. We'll catch you guys next time.